new material we're learning today. My goal for Thursday is to walk through the various problems and exercises in the book that we haven't done yet. Your midterm is very soon. It's 1 week from today in class. I'll talk more about it on Thursday, but take this very seriously. I can promise you the midterm will be heavy on future interest questions. It's the bulk of what we learned. Almost half the semester so far we've done future interest. Okay? All right. What I want to do is the attendance running. The software's been very buggy. Do you see it? I apologize. It does this weird thing where it starts and stops the class. So the same class has multiple sessions, and people getting marked absent unnecessarily, which I'm not happy about. Software's been working great for years. You able to check in? Yes. Okay. All right. Then good. I don't think I have any poll questions today, so that will be the last thing you have to use with your app. But I want to walk through this one collectively. All right. So who is next on my list? Someone's got to be next. I don't recognize anyone actually, but you know who you have faces now. All right. Who's next? Someone? No one remembers. I guess I am. Okay. So I finished there. All right, but what I want to do is I'll call on Shadi in a minute, and then Sarah will be up in a moment. What I want you all to do is before I call on you, write in your notes, not from looking at your notes, but just from memory, the other columns. Okay, understand? Right? I want you to fill in this chart from memory. If you can't do it, that's fine, but don't cheat. Don't look at your notes from last class. Let's see if you can do this just from memory. All right, Shadi. So if I give you this phrase, to A and his heirs. Okay. What is the duration? The duration of the interest is forever. Why? Okay, very good. Who has future interest here, Shadi? Okay, A's heirs. All right. All right. Take 30 seconds now and fill in the rows for this one. A for life. Not, oh my goodness, his heroes. Like, what am I thinking? My mind's somewhere else today. To A for life, then to B and his heirs. Okay, fill in the other two columns. Okay. And again, don't look at your notes. Try and do this just from memory if you can. If you can't, that's fine, but you should work on it. All right, Sarah. So what's the duration of present interest here? Yeah, the life of A. Very good. Okay. And who has a future interest here? Okay. How do you describe B's future interest? B has a future interest in remainder. Be more specific. You're like 80% of the way there. Be more specific. Okay. First off, why remainder here?
Because it follows the natural termination of a present interest.
And where's it go?
And it goes back to grantor.
Does it?
Oh, wait, sorry.
Where's it go in this case?
Third party.
Okay, say it again. So why is there a remainder here?
Because it follows the natural termination of the present interest and it goes back to the third party.
Very good. So we have a remainder because there is a future interest following a natural termination going to a third party. Okay, now Sarah, you said it's vested. Why is it a vested remainder? I want to hear two things right now.
Because there's no condition precedent.
There's no condition precedent. Good. What's the second one?
B is ascertained.
And B is ascertained. Correct. Very good. Thank you. You need to do those steps in your head. Don't skip them. Today's lesson will prove why you shouldn't skip them. And it's a vested remainder to be simple. Okay, that's correct. Everyone with me? Okay, I'll just call this one number 1 because there are going to be several different types of interests. Okay, let's try this one. From O to A for life, period. Okay, Christina? What's the duration of the present interest number 2? Yeah, the life of A, correct. Who has the future interest? O. What do we call O's future interest? Why do you say future interest in reversion? And goes. Perfect. Excellent. Very good. B has a reversion. Why is it a reversion? Future interest that follows a natural termination of life estate and goes back to the grantor. Last question, Christina. Is this a vested or contingent reversion? Damn, you fell for it. Is there such a thing as a vested reversion? No, I guess not. Is there such thing as is there contingent reversion? Okay, good. There's no such thing as contingent or vested reversions. Don't get tripped up by that. I can spot a bad paper a mile away when I see that. Right? There's only going to be vested and contingent remainders. There's not going to be vested or contingent reversions. All right, finish up, Christina. It's has a reversion in fill in the blank. Thank you, very good. Reversion in fee simple. All right, come with me. All right, right now you should see all my traps. I'm telling you in advance my trap's going to be. It's not like I'm going to surprise you. There's no like shock. All right, so try this one. This will be for Austin in a moment. A for life, comma, then to B's children, and I tell you that B has one child. All right, awesome. So again, the duration of the present interest of life estate, that's all good. Who has the future interest here? Okay, B's children. How do you characterize the future interest that these children have?
That would be vested remainder subject to open.
Excellent. Why is it vested remainder subject to open?
Because
First off, why is it a remainder? I know. Let's just do our steps.
because it follows natural termination of a present interest.
Good.
To a third party.
Very good. Its remainder follows a natural termination of A's life, goes to the children, a third party. Now, why is it vested remainder subject to open?
Because you can have more children.
But well, why is it not? Why is it vested versus contingent? First off, you're right. That's why it's subject to open. Why is it vested versus contingent?
Because it's not necessarily it's
What are the criteria for vested remainder?
the vested remainder is no condition precedent, and at least there's one person that's ascertained.
Okay, who's the ascertained person here?
His child.
He's one living child, right? And is there a condition precedent?
No.
Okay, so it's a vested remainder. Now, why is it subject to open?
Because the vehicle could have more children in the future. Thus, there can be more people can have rights to the remainder, depending on that.
Say it one more time. One more time. Why is it subject to open?
Because you can have more children in the future.
What does subject to open mean, Austin?
It means that the remainder.
What does subject to open mean? When you say children, are you referring to a single person?
Well, I guess no, not necessarily. Just I guess in this.
What kind of a gift when you say it to a children? What's that called? When you give a gift to a group of children, what's that called? We give it a name. You remember? Class gift. And what's unique about a class gift, Austin, is the size fixed.
No.
Can it grow or shrink?
Yes.
Might there be 0 children at the end?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll die. Might be 100 children. Might be like 10 children.
Yeah.
So what does subject to open mean?
That it can be added or removed.
That's right. The idea of subject to open is the class can shrink or grow, right? Open just means it's an open class. It can be added to or subtracted to. Everyone with me? Okay. All right, so that's correct. Vest remainder, subject to open. Good so far? Let's try number 4. A for life, and the B's children has no children when this conveyance is drafted. Hey, Vonnie, let's do this one. Number 4.
These children have a contingent
Okay, contingent remainder fee simple. Why is it a remainder?
because it follows the natural termination of a
Okay. Remainder because it's a future interest following a natural termination going to a third party. Now, why is it contingent? These children are ascertained. Is there a condition precedent here? You seem really uncertain. That was like the longest no I've heard in a while. No. Why is no condition precedent? No, sure, but is there? But doesn't BF have children? Isn't that a condition precedent? Isn't a condition precedent B having kids before A's death? You changing your answer?
Yes.
No, you shouldn't. Graham, is there a condition precedent? Why not?
Because
I'll come back to you.
okay.
Ryan, so you shake your head vigorously no.
Because having children and death are like natural.
That's not correct. Look at the text. I'll come back to Graham. Look at the text. Do you see any condition in this text right here? A little small.
There's no conditional language. in there.
Yes.
There's no
The way you know there's a condition precedent is there's got to be conditional language. Don't start playing games in your head. Don't let me trick you. I tricked 2 people in a row on this one, right? Don't let me play tricks with you. Unless you see conditional language, there is no condition precedent. Sure, it's true. A children has to be born before A's death. That's absolutely 100%, right? 100% true. But there's no condition in the text. We're going to see today what matters is conditional language. It does matter in some cases. Here, there's none. Don't insert a condition where there's none in the text. Understood? All right, so contingent remainder and fee simple. Graham, one question for you. Is this a contingent remainder subject to open?
No,
Why not?
that doesn't exist.
That's good. You influenced my trap. Good. It does not exist. Do not tell me again. When I see this on the exam, I can spot it a mile away. You know what you're talking about, right? There is no such thing as contingent remainder that's subject to open. It's true. Children can be born into the class, can leave the class. It's 100% true. But there's no such thing as contingent remainder subject to open. All right. Everyone with me so far. Again, this is not new. This is all stuff we've done in previous classes that you should be able to fill in from memory without having to even think about it. Good? Yeah, well,
Number 3, would O have a future interest as well if there's no children? The time of conveyance.
yes. Yeah, I didn't do that one, but that's absolutely true. What would O's interest be in number 3?
So I would have future interest in reversion.
Good. Yeah. O is a future interest in reversion. I forgot to, but he's exactly right. Why? Why, Will?
Because there's no children at the time of conveyance.
It's got to go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. If there's ever, this is a good thing to keep in mind. Unless you have a fee simple period, if there's any kind of fee simple subject to some divestment, there's got to be reversion following it or something else following it. Ditto for number 4, right? Ditto for number 4. So in number 3, we say also that O has a reversion in fee simple, right? Rodney, what about number 4? Does O have an interest in number 4?
Yes.
What-
Has, future interest in reversion.
Correct. He has a future interest in reversion. Why is it reversion?
Because it follows a natural termination.
Which is? Who's that?
That, well, I guess it would be A's death,
Correct. It follows A's death and goes back to
the grantor.
good. So number 3, O is reversion fee simple, and number 4, O is reversion fee simple. Thank you, Will, for reminding me. I forgot to mention that, but you're exactly right. You always have to account for all the future interests, right? Whenever there's a contingent remainder, just be on the lookout for a reversion. Right? Whenever there's some sort of open, a vest remainder subject to open or subject to divestment, look out for the future interest. It's floating around somewhere. It might not be O, it probably is, but it's going to be somewhere. Okay. Everybody with me? Okay. Let us continue. Let's try this one. This one I think is, I don't think I gave this one last week, but we'll try it. From O to A for life, comma, then to B and his heirs if he graduates law school before A dies. Oops. They put this new thing in here, but don't realize it actually blocks half the monitor. So I can only see half the monitor at the same time. This is terrible design, but no one ever asked me. All right. No one ever asked me. I have no idea this was coming. I just show up on Monday morning. Here it is. All right. All right. So from O to A for life, comma, then to B and his heirs, and that should be if B graduates, just so we know who he is. I'm sorry. If B graduates law school before A dies. Okay. Miranda, help us out here. What is B's future interest here?
He has a future interest in a contingent remainder and fee simple,
That's correct. Why is it a contingent remainder?
because there's a condition precedent on
Correct.
B graduating,
Correct. What is that condition precedent?
B graduating from law school before A dies.
Correct. Good. Thank you very much. He has contingent remainder and fee simple. Fee simple. Why? The condition's right here. You need the word if, right? This is my point before to Rodney and Brienne. You need the word if. That's your conditional language. That's what tells you there's a condition precedent, right? Don't just assume there's a condition. Look in the text of the conveyance. And so Miranda, finish it up. If B has contingent remainder and fee simple, what happens if B flunks out of law school? Which none of you will do, I'm sure, right? But if B flunks out of law school, that's why I hate this question. But I guess it's reaffirming because we get this question wrong. Never mind. Right? What happens to B if B flunks out of law school? What happens to Blackacre?
We'll go back to O because O has a future interest in reversion.
Perfect. Excellent. Good job. You will be here next semester. Good. I don't know. I mean, look, I don't want to say this crass, but every semester, 10% of you guys won't be here. Just it happens. A lot of you just won't come back for one reason or another. It happens. I know it sounds dreadful, but you have to be adults here. O is reversion, fee simple. All you control is that you're not one of those 10%. That's someone else, right? Someone else won't be you. Look, I hate to say it, but it's true, right? Law school is a very steep learning curve. You get 2 semesters to try it out, and then you have to look at your GPA very carefully. That's why I mean this sincerely. Don't blow off the midterm, because if you blow off the midterm, it's a signal of how the final exam will go. All right. Questions so far? All right. We're just on life estates. We're 20 minutes and we've not done anything else, just life estates. All right. Let's try the next row. Should be a little bit quicker, I think, because there are fewer variants. From O to A for life, comma. I'm sorry. Oops, I did the wrong thing. Scratch out. I'm sorry. I said the wrong thing. I apologize. From O to A, comma, as long as Blackacre is used for school purposes. All right, Rhett, help us out here. What is the duration of the present interest here?
The duration of the present interest is A, and it's going to be simple.
Huh? I'm asking what the duration of the present interest is.
Forever.
Forever? What happens if Blackacre is not used as a school? It's not forever. There's not a fee simple.
Condition on that.
Oh boy. What's the present interest here, Rhett? It's on the screen. It's in front of your face.
Determinable.
What? I didn't. What'd you say? Oh boy.
Or as long as it's used for school purposes.
What's the present interest here, Rhett? Tiffany?
It's a fee simple determinable.
Yeah, it's right up there. Fee simple determinable. Right there. Tiffany, what's the duration of this present interest?
As long as the Blackacre is being used for school purposes.
As long as Blackacre is being used for school purposes. Correct. All right. So I'll come back to you, Rhett. What is the future interest here? If the present interest is a fee simple determinable, what's the future interest?
The future interest is a possibility of reverter.
How do you know that?
Because if Blackacre doesn't use the property for school purposes, then it would automatically go back to O.
Correct. But how do you know it's a fee simple? I'm sorry. How do you know it's a possibly reverter? That was my question.
Based off of the language that's provided, we can see that the interest is contingent on them using the school or using the property for school purposes.
How do you know there's a fee simple determinable? All right. You're not prepared. Nick,
Because it's unnatural.
it's what?
Unnatural.
Oh, okay. Unnatural. What do you mean it's unnatural?
That it doesn't. It's an unnatural termination, so it doesn't depend on
Correct. But what specifically tells us the fee simple determinable?
the so long as.
Good. What kind of language is that?
It is duration.
Correct. We see durational language, so long as, right? So long as. When you see durational language, so long as, that's a very good indication to fee simple determinable. Not always. We'll see that in Class A. It might be something else. But that's your starting presumption, right? We have from O to A, comma. If you put a period there, it looks a lot like a fee simple. But there's not a period there. It's a comma. It's a fee simple that's subject to this durational language. We call a fee simple subject to durational language a fee simple determinable. A fee simple determinable. Okay? You need to be able to spot the language, but specifically, you see a fee simple from O to A, comma. It's a fee simple subject to a durational language, fee simple determinable. Everyone get that? Nicholas, what is the future interest that connects or that's paired with the fee simple determinable?
The future interest is a possibility of reversion
Correct. How do you know that?
because it would go back to
What exactly is a possible reverter in this case? How do we define it?
I look at my kids here. Okay.
I tried if you didn't, but do your best and you can look later.
It is because if the condition is broken for the duration
Good.
of no language, it would go back to A.
Goes back to the grantor.
Right.
Is it going to a third party? Pay attention for later. Pay very close attention. We'll study later in class. If the future interest goes to a third party in a case like this, it might be an executory interest. We're not there yet. We'll do that in another 20 minutes or so. Here it goes to the grantor, right? So we say that O has a possibility of reverter in fee simple. And the duration is so long as, I don't know, it's in bold, Blackacre is used for school purposes. Okay. Okay. You need to memorize the pairing. If you know the present interest is a fee simple determinable, you're going to be really certain, not 100%, but really certain the future interest is possibly reverted. In this case, it's going back to the grantor. That's being possibly reverted. Do not say possibility of reversion. That's not a thing. That does not exist. It is a possibility of reverter. Very often, you'll have a question. You'll see this later today, where you know what the future interest is, but you don't know what the present interest is. You have to sometimes work backwards. So sometimes you have to get the possible reverter. You know that's going to be a fee simple determinable. All right. Well, one more question on this one. After the school is being used, let's say for industrial or residential purposes, who owns Blackacre at that instant? Oh, why?
Because it's automatic.
It's automatic. What does that mean? It's automatic.
So as soon as the condition, or as soon as the, it's not used for school purposes,
Right away. There's no need to take any action to re-enter the property. The next one does. The next one we're going to do in a minute does. With a fee simple determinable, it's automatic. Okay. Everybody with me, guys? Everyone with me? Good. Good. All right. Again, we're now 30 minutes in class. I've done nothing new. We're just filling a table from last week. This shouldn't take 30 minutes, but it does. So that here we are. Let's do one more row. As we for Kinsey in a minute. And everyone just try and do these in your notes too as well. From O to A and his heirs, comma. But if Blackacre is not used as a school, O has right of entry. Blackacre, from O to A and his heirs, comma. But if Blackacre is not used as a school, as a school, O has a right of entry. All right, so Kinsey, first off, what is the duration of the present interest here?
The duration of the present interest is as long as Blackacre is not used as a school.
Does it as long as? Look, be very careful.
Yeah.
That's not what it says, is it?
Okay. If Blackacre is not used as until Blackacre is not used as a school.
Say it with conditional language, please.
Okay. On the condition.
Good, that's pretty good. Yeah, right. So the duration is A has a present interest, something like on the condition that A uses Blackacre for school purposes, something like that, right? Just don't do the trap of saying so long. I know what you did. I saw exactly,
Yeah.
and you saw it too the second you said it. Try not to use the language different, because Kinsey, what's the difference between the fee simple determinable and the fee simple subject to which is subsequent? Why are they different
The durational language.
versus the
Conditional language.
perfect? The fee simple determinable uses durational language, while, during, so long as, until, measuring periods of time. The fee simple subject to condition subsequent is conditional language. I mean, just look at the name. It's a fee simple, right? That's subject to a condition. What type of condition? A condition that comes after, right? The present interest. There's a fee simple subject to some other condition that comes later. The name itself is telling you that you're using conditional language. Even if you don't remember what I'm telling you, you can just sort of figure it out from the name. Yes, Will.
So for that, can you just say like, A as a present interest and be simple, subject condition, and condition is property use in school?
Yeah, just don't use so long as or while during that kind of language. I'm flexible, but I want to make sure you're using the right kind of language. All right, Pedro, help us out here then. If we know that the present interest is the fee simple subject to condition subsequent, what is the future interest?
The future interest is that O has a right to re-entry.
Good. Oh, as a right of reentry. How do you know that?
It says it.
It says it. Yeah. I mean, look, this is the easiest one, right? It says it right there, black and white. It's right there in front of your face. It says it. But even if it didn't say it, let's say because look, I can mess with you, right? I can do this, and this is not out of bounds. I could just give you this, period, without giving you the O as right of entry. And what would you have to say there, Pedro?
In that case,
Does the answer change if I just give you that? Let's say you have people who are not lawyers who don't really know what they're doing, and they wrote this conveyance, and they put a period right there. They didn't say what happens to O. Does that change the present interest?
I think it could possibly change.
It wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't.
No.
Why wouldn't it?
Because it's still I guess it satisfies what.
But if. The but if of the magic words. So I'm telling you, sometimes you're not going to know what the future interest is. But if you see this but if, there's a condition that comes after the fee simple. It's a fee simple subject condition subsequent. And if you know the present interest, what do you also know, Pedro?
If you know the present interest, then you know that there's going to be a future interest.
And the future interest is going to be what?
In this case, right of entry.
Right of entry. If you know the present interest is a fee simple subject to condition subsequent, then you know the future interest is going to be the right of entry. Again, I can give this to you. This is a fair question in an exam. I won't tell you what that is. I can do that. I'm allowed, right? And you have to figure that out on your own. You can't always count on me giving that other bit of information. But the key point is there's a condition that comes afterwards. It's a condition subsequent, literally. From O to A and its heirs, comma. That looks like a fee simple. Great, right? But if Blackacre, blah, 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 blah. The but if comes after the fee simple. It's a fee simple followed by a condition. In other words, a fee simple subject to condition subsequent. Good? Look at that. 30 minutes to fill out a table we filled in last week. I know this is hard, but at this point, you feel filled in this memory, stable for memory cold. Just, in other words, fill in the right column, fill in this column over here, and just fill it in. And if you can't do that, and not just fill it in, but explain why each element is. Oh yeah, contingent remainder. Why is it contingent? Why is it this? Why is it this? Right? All right. Questions? Yes, Courtney, go ahead.
So wait, for A, do they have a defeatable
I'm sorry, which one are we talking about?
for the last one that you did?
What was your question?
Does A have is A's present interest defeatable? Is it M?
Well, yes, right. A fee simple subject to condition subsequent is a type of fee simple defeasible. So correct, it can be cut short. That's right. And it's being cut short by who? By the grantor, by the transferor. All right, questions? I want to do new stuff now. We do new stuff? All right. And again, today we're doing the topic of the fee simple subject to executory limitation. The fee simple subject to executory limitation. Please do not abbreviate FSSEL. Please don't do it. Some of you may have already done it. Don't do it. You're going to regret it. You need to know what these words are. You can't abbreviate it. The case summary folder on the Google Drive has there's topics for everything, but read this one carefully because this one's a little tricky. We'll go through it. It'll take us about an hour. We'll go through it. All right, so far we've reviewed 4 types of present interest, right? So look at this chart. We've done the fee simple absolute, the life estate, subsequent, and the fee simple determinable. All right, done 4. There's no future interest that follows absolute, right? When you have a fee simple absolute, you control what happens in the future. But for the other 3, there will be a future interest that follows. And that future interest can be held by the transferor, or the future interest can be given to a third party. All right, so let's go back to our chart, right? We have 3 types of future interest we've studied that can be retained by the transferor, right? We have the reversion, right? The reversion is a future interest that follows the natural termination of a present interest, like a life estate, and it goes to the transferor. Second, after a fee simple subject to condition subsequent, the transferor will have a right of entry. And third, after a fee simple determinable, the transferor has a possibility reverter. Right, I've done those 3. We've only studied one kind of future interest that goes to a third party that's not retained by the transferor, and that is the remainder. The remainder is a future interest that follows the natural termination of a present interest and goes to a third party. Remainders can be vested or contingent. And vested remainders can be subject to open or subject to divestment, right? So within the category of remainders, you have like a decision tree, right? You have vested, contingent, and within vested, you have subject to open or subject to divestment. You have to sort of break down different levels. There is no contingent reversion. There is no contingent remainder subject to open. Don't say it. All right. So let's take a look at 1A again. We have here Blackacre from Ollie to Alex, comma, so long as Blackacre is used for school purposes. Right? This is written as a conditional or durational language, which tells us we have a fee simple determinable followed by a possibility of reverter. Nothing new. Now I want you to look at number 1B. It's going to look real similar to 1A, but there is an important difference. 1B says, Blackacre from Ollie to Alex, comma. All right, so far so good, right? So long as Blackacre is used for school purposes, comma. Then to Baker, period. Do you see what I did, right? 1A and 1B are identical until you get to a purpose. With 1A, the future interest belongs to Ollie, right? In 1A, the future interest belongs to Ollie. He has a possibly reverter. But in 1B, the future interest belongs to Baker, not to Ollie, to Baker. We've said 100 times that a possibility reverter is a future interest that belongs to the transferor, right? Baker cannot have a possibility reverter. Why? Baker is not the transferor. Again, Baker cannot have the possibility reverter because Baker is not the transferor. You say, wait a minute, Josh. You told me, you lied to me, right? You said so long as, right? Isn't so long as durational, which means it's a fee simple determinable? Yeah. But a fee simple determinable only exists where the future interest goes back to the grantor. If a third party is cutting short the present interest, it's not a fee simple determinable. Again, if a third party is cutting short the present interest, it is not a fee simple determinable. It cannot be. It's got to be something else. All right. So again, look what happens here. Alex has Blackacre. He's doing great. But as soon as he uses it for residential purposes, Baker comes along and terminates Alex's interest. He terminates it. Or we could say he executes it, right? Like an executioner, right? Your terminator, execution, right? He executes his interest. Or we could say he limits Alex's interest, right? The executor limits Alex's interest. Baker is the executor who limits Alex's interests. Baker has an executory interest or an executory limitation. You see what I'm doing, right? Baker has an executory limitation. He is executing or limiting the present interest held by Alex. Right? The future interest here is called an executory limitation or an executory interest. I prefer the first one because it's telling you literally what it does. It limits, right? Baker has an executory limitation. And whose interest is he limiting? Baker is limiting Alex's present interest. So what does Alex have? Alex has a fee simple that is subject to Baker's executory limitation. Alex has a fee simple that is subject to Baker's executory limitation. I'll write this out. Right? Baker has an executory limitation. And we say that Alex has a fee simple subject to Baker's executory limitation. You notice I did that backwards. I did the future interest first and the present interest second. With executory limitations, you often work backwards. If you just look at the present interest, so long as, that's a fee simple determinable, right? No. You have to do the future interest first and then go backwards. You don't know what Alex has, so you know what Baker has. Again, look at 1A and 1B. They're identical. If you start with the present interest, you're going to get it wrong. You need to go to the future interest. Right? Yeah.
So Baker doesn't have an executory interest and executory limitation.
I told you the same thing.
Sorry.
Executory interest, executory limitation are synonymous. They mean the exact same thing. I like the first one because it's telling you what it does, right? It's limiting Alex's estate. All right. So now you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Josh. I just did this long chart you made me memorize where you told me so long as that means fee simple determinable. Correct, but it was fee simple determinable where the grantor, O, had a future interest. If you see in this example, 1B, the future interest goes to a third party, you know it cannot be a possibly reverter. Possibly reverter is only held by the grantor. And you think, okay, it's an executory interest or executory limitation. And here, Alex's present interest is subject to B's future interest executory limitation. Yes, Christina.
Would you have to specify B has a future interest in?
Yes, thank you. You're 100% correct. I sometimes take shortcuts, and I'm a bad teacher for doing it. Yes. Baker has a future interest in. Okay, there we go. And Alex has a present interest in fee simple. Okay, better. Okay. Always feel free to. I do make mistakes. It's true. As my little daughter says, accidents happen, right? They do. But does everyone see why this is not a fee simple determinable? On every midterm, without fail, like 20% of the class gets this wrong. Without fail. Because they see the word so long as, think, oh, I have my chart so long as duration language. Look at me, I'm so smart. Right? There's a fee simple determinable followed by possibly reverted, and it's wrong. You need to see where the future interest goes to characterize the present interest. You cannot do it out of order. Everyone with me? One other facet or attribute of the fee simple subject to executory interest is it's automatic. It executes automatically. Right. By the way, the word determinable, actually is the same meaning as execute. Determine means to cut short. So both determine and execute means to cut short and does it automatically. There's no need to re-enter with an executory interest. It cuts automatically. So as soon as the condition is violated, Blackacre goes to Baker. There's no need for Baker to go to court. Blackacre is owned by fee simple. Baker owns Blackacre and fee simple. Everyone with me? Everyone with me? Again, this is not a fee simple determinable. The reason you know this is because the future interest. The future interest is going to a third party. The third party is cutting short the present interest held by Alex. Future interest is an executory limitation. And if the future interest is executory limitation, the present interest is a fee simple subject to the executory interest. All right. Everyone with me? All right, let's move on. Let's go to number 2. Example number 2. So far, I've showed you fee simple subject to executory limitation with durational language. But you can also do a fee simple subject to executory limitation with conditional language. So look at 2A and 2B. 2A and 2B. A says Blackacre from Ollie to Alex, comma. But if Blackacre is not used for school purposes, then Ollie has a right of entry. All right, Christina, help us out. What is the present interest in 2A?
Alex has
Be more specific. That's not going to be enough.
has a present interest in fee simple.
It's not a fee simple. Read it.
In present interest subject to condition.
You got to say it correctly. What does Alex have? We've done this one in class already today.
Present interest in fee simple subject to condition.
Say that louder.
Has a present interest in fee simple subject to a condition subsequent.
Why is it a fee simple subject to condition subsequent?
Because it can be terminated.
That's What is the definition? How do we know there's a fee simple subject condition subsequent?
Conditional.
Okay, it's conditional language and Who has the present interest, a future interest?
The grantor.
Okay. What do you call the future interest that follows the fee simple subject condition subsequent?
Future interest is the right to reentry.
Right of entry. Okay. So in this question, Baker, Ollie has right of entry. Okay. Again, this should be second nature, right? There should not be any hesitation on these, right? These are simple questions. They get a lot harder. If you want to just scroll down a bit, you'll see what the questions look like in about 20 minutes. They get a lot more complex. All right, Jen, so let's go to 2B, right? Blackacre from Ollie to Alex, comma. But if Blackacre is not used for school purposes, then to Baker. All right, then to Baker. They differ. Here it says then Ollie. Here it says then Baker. How does that change the present interest, Jen? Okay, so what's the future interest here?
Baker would then have a future interest in executory interest.
Okay, Baker has a future interest, executory interest. What's the present interest?
Alex has a present interest in fee simple subject to executory interest
Very good. How do you know that?
because of the then to Baker.
Who's cutting short the present interest?
Baker,
Who is a
third party.
correct? Okay, good. Baker's a third party. Baker's cutting short Alex's present interest. So Baker has a present interest in executory limitation. And I would just say limitation or interest. I know the book says interest. They're both correct. Limitation tells you what's going on. It's literally B is limiting A's interest. That's why I prefer limitations interest. But you're not wrong, Jen. Baker has a present interest in executory limitation. And then Alex has what, Jen? Good. Be simple, subject to executory limitation. Very good. You can use words they wanted. Good. Again, look at 2A and 2B. Alex, the present interest subject to fee simple, subject to conditions subsequent. And this is fee simple subject to executory limitation. Do you see the subtle difference, right? And you know it's a fee simple subject to executory limitation because the future interest has to be executory limitation. Will? I'm sorry? La. Thank you. Thank you for always correct me. Future interest. All right. But you see how tricky this is. If you're not paying attention and you see but if and you assume, oh, it's subject condition subsequent, you'll lose it. Because there is a condition subsequent here, right? There's literally a condition subsequent here. But this is not a feasible subject condition subsequent because the future interest goes to a third party. You need to spot where the future interest is going to know what the present interest is. All right. All right. You're nodding. You're be the only one, right? It's okay. Look, this is not easy, but it requires hard work. So at this point, hard work had to have been done already. If it's not clicking, and I know most of you haven't come to my office. I mean, I never get this live from me. You have a 2-hour break between classes. You have a break. I've never seen most of you outside of this classroom. I will go the entire semester not know who any of you are. It's just you're paying a lot of money for this experience, right? We're talking about having this hybrid flex education. We never see professors, and this. You're here. You're in the building anyway. But I can't force you. But right now we're getting to the point of sort of no return, right? It's halfway through. All right. Everyone get 2B. 2B. All right. Now, there's another important difference between 2A and 2B. In 2A, there's a right of entry. The right of entry does not immediately terminate Alex's interest. Ollie must exercise his right of entry, go to court to cut short Alex's fee simple subject condition subsequent. But we said before, an executory interest automatically terminates the present interest. It's automatic. Therefore, in example 2B, this thing's going to break if I put any weight on it. This is just terrible. Who are they thinking? I hope they get rid of the old ones. I want it back. In example 2B, right, it's automatic. Alex will immediately forfeit his interest when the condition is violated. Everyone get that, right? I ask this almost every year, right? I'll ask, who has the present interest, and there's nothing about Alex going to Baker going to court. Doesn't matter here. If I ask you in a fee simple subject condition subsequent, and there's no information about going to court, it doesn't transfer yet. So be very attentive to this issue. All right, everyone get 2B. Let's do 2C. All right. Actually, let's do 2B one more time. I need to give you some vocabulary. There are two types of executory limitations. Yeah, I'm giving you more stuff to learn, I know, right? There are two types of executory limitation. Two types. Okay? The first type is called shifting, right? A shifting executory limitation. Shifting. This is just something you have to memorize. There's no way of sort of figuring it out naturally. A shifting executory limitation terminates the interest of the transferor. A shifting executory interest terminates the interest of the grantor. Okay? Transfer is the same thing. Transfer, it's the same thing. Grantor suggests money's involved. I mean, just it really does make a difference, but transfer is probably more precise. Transfer is without regard to money. Okay? So, Sophia, hi. Oh, my row's empty, right? Sophia, does, in example 2B, does Baker have a shifting executory limitation? Whose interest is being cut short here?
No, because he cut short Alex's interest. Ollie doesn't retain any interest after the conveyance to Alex. So.
Oh, I said the wrong thing. Damn it. I'm sorry, Sophia. I said the wrong thing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I screwed up your notes. Thank you. Oh boy, I'm lecturing you. Okay. The shifting executory interest terminates interest of the transferee. The shifting executory interest terminates interest of the transferee. I jumped ahead of myself. There's the other one. These are very easy to confuse, and I just did it. I'm really sorry. The shifting executory limitation. Sorry, Sophia. The shifting executory limitation terminates the interest of the transferee. It cuts short the interest of the third party. The shifting executory interest cuts short the interest of the third party, the transferee. And I'll answer the question. I'll spare Sophia this one. In 2B, Baker has a shifting executory limitation, right? Why is it shifting? It's cutting short Alex's interest. Alex is the third party transferee. Okay? Baker has a shifting executory limitation because he's cutting short the interest of Alex, the third party. So we say Baker has a shifting executory limitation, and Alex has a present interest in fee simple subject to a shifting executory limitation. You have to actually update in both places. So Alex has a present interest in fee simple subject to shifting executory limitation. And Baker has a future interest in shifting executory limitation. I got that right. It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful. And if you want to be more precise, which I'm about to do, Alex has a present interest in fee simple subject to Baker's shifting executory limitation. That makes it a little bit easier, but also more complex. Alex has a present interest in fee simple subject to Baker's shifting executory limitation. They have to match, right? When you have executory interest, they have to match on both sides. Whatever the future interest is must match up with the present interest. I'll do this one more time. The shifting executory limitations when you're cutting short the interest of the transfer to the third party. Here it's Alex. Alex has the present interest. He's a third party. He got it from O. Baker is cutting short the third party's present interest. Therefore, it's a shifting executory interest. Not easy. This is tricky. This trips people up every time. I'll get to the other one in a minute. The other one's even harder, which is why I inverted in my head. Does everyone get why it's a shifting executory interest? Amar, I don't know if your hand was up.
No, it's fair.
Scratch, right? Well,
So it goes from one transferee to another transferee.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
So it terminates the interest of the transferee and it goes to another.
Correct.
transferee.
Right. So it's a third party cutting short another third party's interest. Well, actually,
Or is that not how you can say it?
you know what? No, I'm going to actually take that back. In this question, Baker's not a transferee. He didn't get anything in the present. He got a future interest, right? So you say Baker's a third party. Shadi.
Is it right to say Baker has a future interest in shifting executory limitation on Alex's estate?
If you want to, you can.
I was just.
You can. No, I mean, look, so here's the rub, and I think Shadi makes a good point. The more information you put in, the more precise it is, but also you risk making a mistake, right? You're risking the wrong thing. So it's always this sort of temptation not to say too much. But if it helps in your own notes, you're welcome to start with as much detail as you want. This one sucks. I know. The next one's gonna be worse. Just look at 2C. I mean, this entire classroom, the desk is in front of the projector. This stupid thing's in front of my computer. It's just hit out terribly. Yes, Amar.
So the shifting executory limitation is as defined but by a third party?
It's cutting short the interest of the transferee. But the very nature of an executory interest is a third party is cutting short. So let me answer Amar's question. Just serious. Let me just look at one at a time, right? So first off, it's an executory interest. How do you know that? A third party is cutting short the interest of the transferee. That tells you, okay, third party, cutting short interest of transferee, that's executory limitation shifting. But you can also cut short the interest of the transferor. All right, that's the next one. That one people hate because conceptually it hurts your brain. I can see the looks in your face of just the pain and suffering. Suresh, I know you had some comments. I don't like the side conversations because I can't hear them. What were you asking?
I'm sorry, it was not related to class at all.
Oh, I appreciate your honesty. Thank you. That's good. Oh, I like honesty above all. It's always the best policy. Yeah, I have pretty good hearing, but I can't. Yeah, these things are still here. Yeah. No, these things actually, they mute my voice. So I'm talking now, right? You actually hear it's much louder here than here. So I actually have to project more. But anyway, here we are. Everyone see why it's an executory limitation, why it's shifting in nature. All right, the next one's worse. So I gave the definition of shifting. Now I'll give you the definition of a springing executory limitation. I gave it to you before by accident because I was looking at the wrong spot in my notes. So I apologize for that. Expiring executory limitation terminates the interest of the transferor. Terminates the interest of the transferor. You can have an executory interest that executes or cuts short the interest of the transferor, Ollie. Right? So far, Ollie's always been seeing cool. Ollie's kind of just waiting, seeing what's going on. But Ollie can lose out Blackacre. With example 2C, this is going to take us a while. This is probably one of the hardest examples of the semester. Sophia, I'm sorry, this is you now. I skipped you the easier one. Okay, it's okay. If you don't get it, well, we can move on. But it'll be your question in a minute, right? We're both from New York City, by the way, so it goes way back. Different boroughs, though. Different boroughs. Queens, Staten Island. So anyway, it's good. Blackacre from Ollie to Alex for life, comma. Then to Baker. If Baker gives Alex a proper funeral. So first of all, I'll come to you in a second, Sophia, right? We're back to life estate, right? In 2A and 2B, these were different types of fee simples. Fee simple subject executive limitation, right? But we're back to a life estate. And it says Blackacre from Alex to Ollie for life. So Alex is a life estate. So far, so good. Comma. Then to Baker. If Baker gives Alex a proper funeral. Sophia, does Baker have a remainder? Natural termination followed after, and then goes to third party?
No, because it's not, his future interest doesn't immediately follow.
Yes, she got it. Exactly. Say it one more time.
His future interest doesn't immediately follow from Alex.
How do you know the future interest does not immediately follow the death of Alex?
The durational, like then to Baker if that language says that it's not immediately upon his death, but like under this condition.
Is it possible, Sophia, to give a funeral immediately upon a person's death? No. There's going to be a gap, isn't there? And Sophia, what happens to Blackacre during that gap?
It goes back to Ollie.
It goes back to Ollie. She's exactly right. She's 100. Most people don't see that right away. Very good, Sophia. Right? She's 100% correct. After, when you see this question, you say, "Oh man, this is a remainder, right? 100% a remainder, right?" Easy. No. We define a remainder as the future interest that follows the natural termination. Why did I make you keep repeating that point over and over again? The funeral question. I've been harping on this for almost 3 weeks for this exact question, which I knew was coming, right? I knew it's coming. Because if you don't do the first step, it's a remainder. Oh, remainder, after life estate. No. After a natural termination. There's a life estate here, but it's not natural because there's a condition. It's going to be death plus some period of time. It's also possible Baker never does a funeral. Right? What if Baker dies? Then Baker can never do the funeral. What if Baker dies before Alex dies? Baker can never do the funeral. This cannot be a remainder because it's not following the natural termination of the prior estate. It's not following the life estate of Alex. Everyone get that point? So what happens is, upon the death of Alex, Blackacre has to go somewhere. Blackacre has to go somewhere. Now, Sophia says it goes to Ollie. Ryder, what then does Ollie have? What's Ollie's interest?
Ollie has a future interest in reversion
That's correct. Why is it reversion?
because Ollie, he would inherit the estate after the natural termination of A, and he would and Ollie was the original transferee.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Okay. We're good so far. This should take about 10 minutes, but we're two people. Very good. All right. So the other class does the same duration. I hate comparing, but I can do minute to minute how many minutes it takes to answer a question. you might think I'm insane, but I have the entire class mapped out how many minutes, so I know just roughly how many minutes for each topic there are allocated. Ollie has a futuristic reversion. Why? Why? It's a future interest that follows a natural termination. See, immediately upon Alex's death, it goes back to Ollie. And it's back to the grantor, the transferor, that's Ollie. Now, how do we know it goes back to Ollie? It's got to go somewhere. The conveyance doesn't actually tell us what Sophia and Ryder just figured out, right? It doesn't actually say it goes back to Ollie. You have to use your head. It's got to go somewhere, right? Property must be owned by someone at every point in time. Property cannot be owned by no one. So at this point in time, it goes back to Ollie. Temporarily. Or perhaps permanently. Maybe Ollie gets to keep it forever. So Ryder, finish it up.
So O has a future interest in reversion in fee simple subject to springing executory committee.
Oh, you did everything right. Okay, you answered Laura's question. Fine, I'll pretend you didn't say that. I'm going to stop right there, right? It's in fee simple, but not fee simple absolute. Laura, why is this not going to be in fee simple absolute? What might happen to Ollie's interest here?
Baker might give Alex a proper penal.
He might. And then what happens then?
Then Baker will get it.
Baker will get it. So Baker can execute or cut short or terminate Ollie's interest in Blackacre. So, Laura, how do we characterize Baker's interest here?
So Baker has a future executory interest.
Okay, so Baker has a future interest in close. You're like 90% of the way there.
It's shifting.
Not shifting.
A spring.
Well, I mean, yeah, 50%. But Ryder said a minute ago. What's a spring? Whose interest is being cut short here, Laura?
Always.
Is Ollie the transferor or the transferee? No. Who's Ollie in this conviction? Try it again. Okay. Is Ollie the transferor or the transferee?
Ollie is the transferor.
Correct. Whose interest is being cut short?
Ollie.
What do you call a future interest that cuts short the interest of the transferor? Correct. Baker has a future interest in springing executory limitation. Baker has a future interest in springing executory limitation. Again, Baker's cutting short the present interest of Ollie by giving the funeral. Not just a funeral, a proper funeral, which is actually a very hard standard to judge. 1 second, Ryder. Baker's cutting short the interest of Ollie at some point in the future, right? And the reason why it's springing is because the interest of the transfer is being cut short by this third party. I'm not done yet, right? So Laura, finish it up. We said here, Ollie has a future interest in reversion and fee simple. Finish the sentence. It's got to match up. It's got to be, both sides have to mirror each other. Just give me the full sentence. Ollie has a future interest in reversion and fee simple. Fill in the blank. No, you're missing words. Go look at 3B or 2B.
Oh, subject.
Thank you. Subject to what? Who's springing executory interest? Give me a name. Who has a springing executory interest here? It's only two names. Alex is dead.
Baker or Ollie does. Sorry. I'm a little confused.
Who has a springing executory interest? Look at the screen. Up here. Who has the executory interest in 2C?
Nervous.
Okay, I'll move on. Jackie, who has the executory interest here?
The executory interest
Baker. Okay. So how do we characterize Ollie's interest then?
Ollie's interest, it's cutting short the transfer.
Ollie has a future interest in a reversion fee simple subject to finish the sentence. If we know Baker has a future interest in spring executory limitation, whose interest is Baker limiting?
Ollie's,
Okay, so Ollie has a future interest in reversion and fee simple subject to
Ollie's. Sorry, I just got caught off guard. Ollie has a future interest in reversion and fee simple subject to Baker's.
perfect. Perfect. Ollie has a future interest in reversion and fee simple subject to Baker's springing executory limitation. You see how insane this is, right? This is insane. In order to know what the present interest is, you must do the future interest. You all figured, I think, pretty easily what the future interest was. It's got an executory interest that's springing. But then once you get the future interest, you simply slap it back on the present interest. These two have to mirror each other. Whatever the future interest is, the present interest must mirror. It's a future interest reversion and fee simple subject to Baker springing executory limitation. See each level, right? Go through one step at a time. One step at a time. We know Alex has a present interest in life estate. What follows the life estate? Sophia told us it's not a remainder because there's a gap. It's held by Ollie. What does Ollie have? Ollie has a reversion. Why is it a reversion? Future interest that follows the natural termination of a life estate and goes back to the grantor. So the reversion is not in fee simple absolute. It can be cut short. Who's cutting it short? Baker, by giving a funeral. What do you call when you cut short the interest of the transferor? Springing executory interest. Baker has a springing executory limitation. If Baker has a springing executory limitation, then Ollie's reversion is subject to that executory limitation. Do you see how many steps I just did? It was like 10 steps. You need to each one of those steps one at a time to go to the funeral questions. Again, it's probably the hardest question this semester. Not the hardest, but one of the top 5 hardest questions this semester. It's not easy. You have to walk through each step. You have to account for every possible thing that could happen. In this question, if Baker's already dead, then Baker will never connect away Blackacre from Ollie. Ollie will have in fee simple. But so long as there's a possibility that a funeral can be given, Ollie is not secure. His interest will be cut short. Indeed, there's actually litigation. This is based on an old doctrine of what a proper funeral even is. Can you give a proper funeral 20 years after a person dies? Who even knows, right? But there's always that risk that Ollie can get his interest cut short by Baker. Man, this is hard, right? This is really hard. It took longer than expected. All right, so time for 3. I might go a few minutes over it. We need to finish this today, otherwise the midterm won't work. All right, I hate going over, but we'll do what we have to do. All right, let's look at 3A and maybe 3B. I don't think we'll get to 3C. Let's try 3A and 3B. Very often, a remainder and the executory limitation will look very similar. You're going to have difficulty distinguishing remainders from executory interests. This is why you need to know your rules very carefully. So let's look at 3A. This will be for Jackie. I'll come back to you. Blackacre from Ollie to Alex for life, comma.
Alex has a present-
No, I'm not done. I'm not finishing the sentence. You're so excited. No, I'm not done yet. Let me finish reading the sentence, okay? Then you can jump right in. Blackacre from Ollie to Alex for life, comma. Then to Baker, false start, then to Baker. Then to Baker if Baker has reached the age of 21, comma. But if Baker has not reached the age of 21, to Chris. All right, so we know Alex's life estate. Jackie, what does Baker have here?
Baker appears to have a fee simple subject to condition subsequent.
Well, we have a life estate. What follows a life estate?
The remainder.
So you want to change your answer? I think it's something very different a moment ago.
Okay. So a reversion back to Ollie.
Look very carefully. Just go comma by comma, right? Blackacre from Ollie to Alex for life, comma. Then to Baker if Baker's reached the age of 21. Who's getting the future interest after the life estate, Jackie?
Baker.
Okay. Does it come immediately upon the death of Alex? Is there any gap in time?
No.
So what do you call a future interest that follows a natural termination and goes to a third party?
Remainder.
It's a remainder. Okay. Now, is this remainder vested or contingent?
Contingent.
How do you know it's contingent?
Because the remainder has a condition.
What kind of condition?
Condition precedent.
What's the condition precedent?
Baker has to reach the age of 21.
And how do you know it's condition precedent and not a condition subsequent?
Because the condition comes before the fee simple is granted.
Correct. It's in the same clause, the same grammar, right? It comes before the comma. Okay, very good. Thank you, Jackie. Baker here has a contingent remainder because there's a condition precedent. Okay, I'll skip you. Give me an answer ready, kid. And comma. But if Baker has not reached the age of 21, to Chris. What does Baker have? I'm sorry, what does Chris have?
Chris has a future interest
He does. Be more specific.
in contingent remainder
Why is it contingent remainder?
because it's following the natural termination of a life estate
Correct.
with a condition that Chris has not reached the age of 21.
Good. Very good. Condition precedent. Good. These we call the alternative contingent remainders, right? You have two contingent remainders stacked one after the other. They both follow the natural termination of A's death, and they both have condition precedence, that is, Baker reaching the age of 21. If upon Alex's death, Baker's 21, congratulations, Baker gets in fee simple. If Baker's not yet 21, congratulations, Chris has in fee simple, but it's instant. There's no gap, right? There's no funeral type issue where you sort of wait around and see what happens. It follows naturally after the death. These are what we call alternative contingent remainders. Alternative contingent remainders. It's a good tip. If you have two remainders back to back, most likely they're both to be contingent. Not always, but it's a good mental check you can do. Yeah, we'll get 3A. This is not new. We've done this one last week. 3B is new. Abby, so I'll call you for you this one. Let me read it first. Blackacre from Ollie to Alex for life, comma. Then to Baker, comma. But if Baker dies under the age of 21, to Chris. Does everyone see how 3A and 3B are different? Right, how 3A and 3B are different. The grammar is different. They both begin from Ollie to Alex for life. Then to Baker. But you see here the word if is in the same clause. Here the word if comes afterwards. Right? The but if comes after. All right, Abby. So what does Baker have here? Does Baker have a contingent remainder? What does Baker have here? Very carefully on this one. What does Baker have here?
I want to say he has a contingent.
I know you want to say it. All of you want to say it. But that's wrong. Why is that wrong, Abby? It's not a contingent remainder. First off, is it a remainder? Does it follow a natural termination go to a third party?
Yes.
Okay, it's remainder. It follows a natural termination goes to a third party. Now, he's ascertained, get that one out of the way. Is there a condition precedent here, Abby? You see the word if, it's taunting you. It's laughing in your face.
So he has to reach the age of 21.
But is that a condition precedent?
No, it's a condition subsequent.
Good. Everyone see that? The but if comes after the comma. It's a condition subsequent. The condition comes after the comma. So Abby, what happens if Baker's 20 years old when Alex dies? Does he get black hair at least temporarily?
No.
He does. All right, look at this question. From Ollie to Alex for life, then to Baker. But if Baker dies under the age of 21, to Chris. Upon Alex's death, Baker holds on to Blackacre, just waiting to turn 21. Suresh, at what point, though, would Baker lose Blackacre?
If Baker were to die
Before reaching the age of
21.
And who gets it?
Chris.
Chris cut short Baker's interest. The difference between A and B, questions A and B, in 3A, Baker will not get it until he turns 21. In 3B, Baker gets it at any age, but can lose it if he dies before the age of 21. Let's say Baker's already 30. He's got it. He's good, right? But if Baker gets it at his 18th birthday, he's got to watch his back for a couple of years. Maybe Chris tries to kill him. Most facetious, but it's true, right? In 3A, Baker will not get it until he turns 21. In 3B, he gets it and holds on to it unless he dies. If he's dead, he's dead, right? But he has to live to the age of 21. All because of a comma, right? My dear Angelica, right? The place of a comma. Get that one? Hamilton? No? None of you? The place of a comma? Hamilton? Anyway, forget it. The place of a comma really does matter. Google it later. My dearest Angelica from Hamilton, right? The place of a comma really matters. The condition comes afterwards. This cannot be a contingent remainder. It's and I'm going to go over by a couple minutes. I apologize. Baker has a vested remainder. You want to say contingent, Abby was fighting it, but there's no condition precedent. There's a condition subsequent. It's a vested remainder. But it's not a vested remainder in fee simple absolute. It's a vested remainder subject to being cut short. Right? Right? Rich, come back to you. What is Chris's interest called here?
Chris has a shifting executory limitation
Correct. How do you know that?
because he terminates the interest of a transferee if Baker dies under the age of 21.
Good. Chris has a shifting executory limitation. Chris will cut short Baker's interest if Baker dies before the age of 21. So let's finish it off. if Chris has a shifting executory limitation, what does Baker has?
Baker has a future interest.
Okay.
Subject to Chris's.
Well, no. What did Abby say a minute ago? What's Baker's interest called?
A remainder.
What kind of remainder?
A vested.
Okay, so Baker is a vested remainder. Keep going.
Baker has a vested remainder in fee simple.
Good.
Subject to Chris's shifting executory limitation.
Very good. I think I got that one right. Baker has a vested remainder. Oh, in C simple. In fee simple, subject to Chris's shifting executory limitation. And Chris is a shifting executory limitation. Isn't that nuts? Right? Again, I didn't write it up. I'll do it here. In example 3A, Baker has a contingent remainder, and Chris has a contingent remainder. Okay. I'm sorry. Baker has a contingent remainder, and Chris has a contingent remainder. Right? They have the alternative contingent remainders. But in 3B, Baker has a vested remainder that's subject to Chris's executory interest, shifting, and Chris is a shifting executory limitation. The placement of a comma really makes a difference. Yes.
I had con law at 10:40.
What?
I had con law at 10:40.
I'm almost done. Where'd it go? Okay. All right, I'll be done in about 30 seconds. All right. Everyone see this? Yes, Abby.
So in 3A, Ollie retains reversion, correct? Because of the contingent
Yep.
remainder
You know what?
and 3B.
Yep. That's right. And in 3A, Ollie has reversion. It's pretty simple. You always have to account for Ollie. When you have contingent remainders, you always have to account for the future interest. It's always floating around somewhere. Okay. Everyone get this? Liars. All right. I'll stop here. I'll wait here for a few minutes of questions. My office also at 6:23. We'll start class next class, example 3C. So make sure you work on this one on your own. Okay? Thank you so much. 3 minutes over. I apologize for taking your time.